Every day, millions of people open their phones looking for a dose of something. Not caffeine, not comfort, but inspiration. That hit of motivation that makes everything feel possible for a few minutes. You scroll through reels of successful people, perfect routines and powerful speeches that shake the screen with words like hustle, grind, and limitless potential. For a moment, it works. You feel alive, focused, ready to change everything, but by the end of the day, nothing really changed. You're still the same person, just more exhausted. That's the trap. That's the addiction we never talk about. The addiction to inspiration. We consume motivation like entertainment. We play it in the background while we work, while we eat, even while we sleep. It makes us feel productive, even when we're doing nothing. And somewhere deep inside, we start to believe that feeling inspired is the same thing as being changed. But it isn't. That rush you get from a speech, it's not transformation. It's dopamine, the same chemical you get from likes, views, and validation. It's the illusion of movement while you're still standing. Still, motivational speakers know this. That's why they don't sell results when they sell emotions. They don't need you to change. They just need you to keep coming back. Because if you actually changed, if you truly woke up and took action, you wouldn't need them anymore. And that's bad for business, so they keep feeding you just enough hope to keep you hooked. The perfect balance of pain and promise, struggle and salvation. They say things like, your breakthrough is coming, or the universe is testing you, as if your lack of progress is part of some cosmic drama instead of simple avoidance. You eat it up because it sounds deep, because it feels like meaning, because it's easier to believe you're in the process than to admit you're stuck, and that's how inspiration becomes a drug. You chase the high of feeling limitless, even though it fades faster every time. You start to need it just to feel normal. Without it, the silence feels heavy, the work feels boring, reality feels too real. And so you return to the next video, the next quote, the next rise and grind mantra, hoping for one more spark to make you believe again, but you're not chasing dreams anymore. You're chasing a feeling, chemical a hit, the same way someone addicted to sugar craves sweetness but never nourishment. You crave motivation but never progress. It feels good. It keeps you moving emotionally, but it never feeds the part of you that's actually starving, the part that needs real action, real discipline, real truth. That's what they don't tell you. That the more you consume motivation, the less you build it. You outsource your inner fire to external voices. You depend on someone else's passion to feel your own. And slowly, without realizing it, you become addicted to the idea of change, while avoiding the pain of actually changing. Inspiration is supposed to wake you up, but for most people, it's become a lullaby, a soft, sweet song that keeps you dreaming of what life could be, so you don't have to face what life is. Our brains are wired to chase novelty. Every new speech, every viral quote, every emotional montage, it gives you that rush. It tricks your mind into thinking you've taken a step forward, when in truth all you've done is trade real effort for a moment of emotional stimulation. It's why people can watch hundreds of motivational clips yet remain stuck in the same place for years. Because the act of watching gives them enough satisfaction to ease the pain of doing nothing. It replaces effort with emotion, and emotion feels easier. You don't have to fail when you're inspired. You don't have to face the grind or the doubt or the rejection. You can just feel like the kind of person who could succeed someday. That's the seduction. Inspiration becomes a fantasy where you're always on the verge of greatness, but never responsible for achieving it. And while you're lost in that loop, the people selling you transformation are cashing in on your hope. They know exactly what they're doing. They understand human psychology better than most therapists. They know you crave meaning, control, and progress, so they build content that simulates those feelings. They give you the illusion of growth without the discomfort of it. They say things like, "You're already becoming your best self," and you believe it, even though you're still scrolling in bed at 2 a.m. because the words sound powerful, the music swells, the tone rises, and for a brief second, it feels like your whole life is changing. Then the video ends. The silence comes back, and so does reality. You tell yourself you'll act tomorrow. You'll wake up early. You'll start fresh, but tomorrow comes, and instead of taking action, you reach for the same fix, another quote, another video, another success story. That's how subtle the addiction is. It doesn't destroy you outright. It comforts you into inaction. It makes you believe that you're on a path, when really you're just walking in circles around your own potential. You start confusing knowing with doing. You read about discipline but don't practice it. You watch people chase dreams but never chase your own. You feel proud for being motivated, even though motivation has replaced motion. And then over time, your threshold rises. The same quotes don't hit the same way. The same voices stop giving you chills. The same speeches start to sound repetitive. So you search for something stronger, a louder voice, a flashier message, a more intense promise of change. You need a bigger hit to feel the same rush. That's when you know you're hooked, not because you're weak, but because you've been trained to crave emotion instead of endurance. The system rewards excitement, not consistency. It's built for views, not victories, so you keep coming back, believing that one day, the perfect video will finally light. A fire that never burns out, but it won't, because that fire has to come from something much quieter, something no one can sell you. It comes from the part of you that doesn't crave to feel inspired, but craves to feel free. At first, the addiction feels harmless. You tell yourself it's better than wasting time on gossip or meaningless entertainment. At least you're consuming positive content, right? At least you're listening to people who talk about success, growth, and greatness. But over time, something subtle begins to happen. You start to depend on inspiration like oxygen. You can't begin your day without it. You can't focus without it. You can't move without that spark of external energy. And the moment it fades, you feel hollow, like you're missing a part of yourself that you can't quite define. That's the emotional crash, the come down after the high of being motivated. You start to notice that inspiration never lasts long enough. You're fired up for an hour, maybe a day, then you're back where you started, confused, restless, and disappointed. So you look for another fix. You tell yourself, this one will be different. You search for a new guru, a new book, a new voice that can light the spark again. And for a while, it works until it doesn't. Eventually, every speech starts to sound the same. Every story follows the same formula: struggle, breakthrough, success. Every word feels recycled, stripped of meaning, and you start to realize it's not the message that changed, it's you. You've grown numb to it because inspiration without action loses its taste. Like sugar without substance. It burns bright but fades fast. You begin to see that most of what you've been consuming isn't meant to help you grow. It's meant to keep you watching. The algorithms, the thumbnails, the speeches, they all prey on your desire to feel better without changing anything. They whisper promises of greatness but never hand you the tools to build it. And deep down, you start to feel betrayed, not by them but by yourself, because you realize you've been mistaking motion for progress, emotion for change, and comfort for clarity. That's when the darkness starts to settle in. The quiet kind of sadness that comes from seeing the truth but not yet knowing what to do with it. You begin to wonder who you'd be without the noise, who you'd be without the constant stream of borrowed confidence. Would you still believe in yourself? Would you still chase your dreams? Or have you outsourced your belief entirely to strangers behind microphones? That's the terrifying part. Realizing that the longer you've been inspired, the further you've drifted from your own voice. Because every time you let someone else tell you what's possible, you silence your own potential to figure it out. You start living on borrowed motivation, borrowed courage, borrowed purpose. And when the music fades, when the screen goes dark, you're left with a question most people spend their whole lives avoiding. Who am I without inspiration? The answer doesn't come easily, because it requires silence, and silence is what the addiction taught you to fear. It's in the silence that you meet your doubts and the ones no guru can cure. It's in the silence that you feel your own limitations, the ones no speech can erase, and yet that silence is where the truth begins. Breaking the addiction to inspiration doesn't start with motivation. It starts with withdrawal. Not the kind you can see, but the kind you feel. It's uncomfortable. The silence feels heavy. You open your phone out of habit, only to stop yourself mid-swipe. Your thumb hesitates, hovering over the same apps that fed you endless speeches, success reels, and dopamine loops. And in that pause, you feel it. The emptiness that inspiration had been hiding all along. That's what people fear most. Not failure, not struggle, but emptiness. The space between where you are and where you want to be. The gap that no video can fill. Motivational culture tells you to avoid that silence. It tells you to fill every second with affirmations, visualizations, and noise. Because if you ever stop listening, you might actually start thinking. And if you start thinking, you might see through it all. The truth is, boredom and discomfort aren't your enemies. They're the raw materials of growth. They're the weight you lift before strength appears. They're the cold water before you learn to swim. But the addiction to inspiration numbs you to both. It replaces the slow, messy process of real progress with quick emotional hits that feel like evolution. Every motivational video tells you, you're becoming your best self. But what if the real version of your best self isn't obsessed with constant growth? What if it's simply capable of stillness? You see, real growth doesn't happen when you feel inspired. It happens when you're tired, uninspired, and still show up. When you don't want to do the work, but you do it anyway. When the silence feels unbearable, but you don't escape it with noise. That's where the transformation hides, in the moments that no one can see, where there's no applause, no music, no motivational voice echoing behind your thoughts. It's not glamorous, it's not viral, it's not inspirational, it's real. And that's exactly why it scares people. Because being alone with your reality means facing every truth that speeches can't protect you from. You have to confront your inconsistency. You have to admit your fears. You have to see that progress isn't a straight line. It's a series of painfully ordinary days that no one posts about. But once you stop running from those moments, something changes. Slowly, your mind starts to adjust. The noise in your head begins to quiet. You stop craving constant excitement. At first, you mistake that calm for laziness. You think, maybe I've lost my fire. But what you've really lost is dependence, the need to be constantly inspired to function. You begin to see that real discipline is not born from emotional highs. It's built from emotional neutrality, from showing up without needing to feel anything at all. And that's the stage where most people give up, because it's not fun. There's no rush, no validation, no external reward, just the quiet repetition of effort. And that's the one thing the self-help industry can't sell, because it doesn't look good on camera. But that's the truth the addiction hides from you. You don't need to feel ready to begin. You just need to begin, and let readiness catch up later. The ones who break free from the cycle of constant inspiration are the ones who stop chasing the feeling and start embracing the doing. They don't wait for motivation to arrive. They don't worship productivity hacks. They don't look for gurus. They simply accept that progress feels boring most of the time. And that's exactly why it's real. When you finally detox from inspiration, you start noticing how quiet life becomes. No more background noise of someone shouting, "You got this." No more reminders that you're not doing enough. Just silence. And strangely, peace. At first it feels unfamiliar. You've lived so long chasing emotional spikes that calm feels wrong. You used to believe progress was supposed to feel exciting. But now you see, excitement was the illusion that kept you addicted. The silence isn't empty anymore. It's stable. It's where focus lives. You begin to realize that maybe all those years you thought you were chasing greatness. You were just chasing stimulation. The motivational world sells chaos disguised as purpose. They tell you to grind harder, hustle longer, sleep less. They glorify burnout as a badge of honor. And while you're burning your energy trying to feel inspired, the ones selling the inspiration are getting rich off your exhaustion. But when you step out of that loop, you see how freeing it is to simply exist without needing to perform. You stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone's highlight reel. You stop measuring progress in likes or views. You stop looking for that next emotional hit. Instead, you start showing up differently. You start working quietly, not because a video told you to, but because it's who you are now. Your effort stops being performative. It becomes personal. And that's when the real shift happens. You no longer crave validation. because you've built consistency without an audience. You no longer seek motivation because discipline has become your default. There's something powerful about doing the right thing when nobody's watching. It's the opposite of what motivational culture teaches you. It's not about being loud, it's about being unshakable. You don't need to scream your progress anymore. You don't need to post about your grind. You just do it, because your identity isn't tied to being seen. It's tied to becoming. And that's where Unhyped begins. It's not a rejection of growth. It's a rejection of noise. It's the realization that the loudest voices rarely lead the furthest. That success whispered in silence often lasts longer than success shouted online. The people who make real change don't need to feel motivated every day. They just need to move. One deliberate, quiet, grounded step at a time. Because the truth is, motivation burns fast, discipline burns slow, and only one of them survives the dark days when no one's cheering. When you finally stop being addicted to inspiration, you find something that motivational culture can never sell: peace. Not the peace of comfort, but the peace of clarity. The peace that comes from knowing exactly who you are without needing anyone to remind you. You start to see the world differently. Every speech that once electrified you now feels hollow. Every quote that once pushed you feels like a slogan. You start craving reality more than rhetoric, and in that space life becomes simpler, not easier, but clearer. You know what needs to be done, and more importantly, you know that you are the one who has to do it. That's the quiet truth that motivational speakers will never tell you, because if they did, you wouldn't need them anymore. So stop chasing the next dose of inspiration. Stop searching for permission to begin. Stop waiting for the perfect mindset. You already know what to do. You just need to do it, quietly, consistently, and without hype. That's not the glamorous version of success. It's the real one. The one built in silence, sustained by patience, and defined by truth. And when you finally get there, you won't need anyone to motivate you again. The truth is, motivation was never meant to be your home. It was supposed to be a spark, not your oxygen. But somewhere along the line, it became a drug, a soft illusion that made you feel alive, while quietly stealing your ability to move. You watched speech after speech, video after video, waiting for that one line, that one moment, that would finally change you. But it never came, did it? Because change doesn't come wrapped in words. It comes disguised as repetition, boredom, failure, and quiet persistence. You kept waiting for the fire to return, not realizing that the fire was never meant to stay. Motivation burns fast. Reality burns forever. And reality doesn't clap for you. It doesn't care how many motivational quotes you've memorized or how inspired you feel. It only responds to action, to movement, to decisions made when the excitement fades and nothing feels certain. That's why so many people stay stuck. They're high on hope but bankrupt on habits. They want the feelings, not the discipline. They want the dopamine, not the discomfort. They want the outcome, not the process. But at some point you wake up. You look around and realize everyone's chasing the same illusion. Everyone's listening, watching, consuming, but no one's doing. And when you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. That's when you break the cycle. That's when you stop being a consumer of motivation and start becoming a creator of movement. You stop asking, how do I feel inspired? And start asking, what needs to be done right now? It's not dramatic. It's not exciting. It's real. And that's why it works. Because the truth, the dark, quiet truth, is that the people who truly grow aren't motivated all the time. They're tired. They're uncertain. They're scared. But they keep showing up anyway. They don't wait to feel ready. They act even when every part of them screams not to. And that's the part motivational culture never talks about. The unglamorous middle, where progress actually happens. There are no fireworks there. No cinematic music, no applause, just silence. And in that silence, you finally meet yourself. You meet the version of you that's not addicted to motivation anymore. The version that's built from discomfort, discipline, and quiet conviction. The version that doesn't need to be told what to do, because they've already decided who they are. That's the power motivational videos can never give you, because they thrive on your uncertainty. If you ever truly understood your own strength, you'd stop watching them. So maybe it's time to unplug from the noise, time to stop feeding the addiction to inspiration, time to stop chasing the feeling of change and start living it. Because the real transformation won't come when you feel hyped. It'll come when you finally stop needing to be. Welcome to Unhyped, where the truth doesn't scream, it whispers, where growth isn't loud, it's lived, and where you stop chasing motivation and start facing reality.